It was one of those mornings that started off wrong from the moment she opened her eyes. The alarm didn't ring. Her phone battery had died during the night and the sunlight was already creeping through the curtains when she realized she was late. In a small apartment on the edge of the city, she rushed around half-dressed, half-awake, trying to fix her hair while sipping coffee that had already gone cold. Her name was Lena. She worked as an assistant at a local company. Nothing fancy, but she cared about doing her job well. That morning, however, all she could think about was how her boss would react when she walked in late again. It wasn't the first time. She had promised herself it wouldn't happen again, but life had its own plans. She grabbed her bag, stuffed in her files, her phone, her keys, and her wallet, and ran out the door. The city was already alive. Buses honking, people rushing, shopkeepers pulling up their shutters. Lena moved quickly through the crowd, her heels clicking on the pavement, her thoughts racing even faster. Her favorite little cafe was just around the corner. She stopped there almost every morning, even when she was late. It was her small comfort, a cup of strong coffee and a smile from the barista who always recognized her. "The usual?" he asked. She nodded breathlessly, checking her watch and fumbling for her wallet to pay. In her rush, she dropped a few coins, and as she bent to pick them up, her papers slipped out too. She laughed nervously, stuffing them back into her bag, unaware that her wallet had quietly slipped from her purse onto the floor near the counter. The barista handed her the coffee and she rushed out, thanking him over her shoulder, completely unaware of what she had left behind. Outside, she joined the flow of people heading to the metro. The air was cool but carried the smell of morning traffic and fresh bread from the bakery next door. Lena took a deep breath, feeling her heart slowly calm down as she sipped her coffee. She thought maybe her day was turning around, but that calm lasted only until she reached the ticket booth at the metro station. She reached into her bag to pull out her wallet and her hand met nothing but air. She froze. She dug deeper, pushing aside her notebook, her makeup pouch, her charger, still nothing. A small wave of panic hit her chest. She turned her bag upside down, checked every pocket, even the floor around her. Her wallet was gone. At first, she thought maybe she had left it on the counter at home, but no, she had just paid for coffee a few minutes ago. Her heart began to pound faster. She ran her mind through every place she had been in the last half hour. Her apartment, the cafe, the street. Her hands started shaking. It wasn't just about the money. Her wallet carried her ID, her bank cards, and a small, worn-out photograph of her father. That photo was her treasure. Her father had passed away 5 years ago, and that picture, taken when she was 7, was the only one she always carried with her. Losing that felt like losing him all over again. Without wasting another second, she turned back and ran toward the cafe. She nearly spilled her coffee as she hurried past the crowd, bumping into strangers who gave her puzzled looks. When she reached the cafe door, she pushed it open and looked around in panic. "Did someone see a wallet? A small brown one?" she asked, her voice trembling. The barista looked up and shook his head. "No, I don't think so. You left just a few minutes ago. Maybe someone else picked it up?" Her heart sank. She scanned the floor, the tables, even the trash bin near the counter. Nothing. The spot where she had been standing was empty, as if her wallet had vanished into thin air. Lena stepped outside, her eyes darting along the sidewalk, hoping by some miracle it had just fallen somewhere nearby. People walked by without noticing her distress, everyone too busy with their own mornings. She tried to stay calm, telling herself maybe someone honest had found it and would return it soon. But the small voice inside her said otherwise. She walked the entire route she had taken earlier, checking every corner, every step. By the time she reached her office, she was exhausted, sweaty, and heartbroken. She could barely focus the rest of the day. Her boss noticed her blank stare during meetings but didn't say much. When the day finally ended, Lena took the long route home, walking instead of taking the train. Her thoughts were heavy and her steps slow. Every few minutes she checked her phone, just in case someone had messaged her or called. Nothing. At home, she sat on her bed and stared at the small photo frame on her nightstand. The same picture she had lost, but this one was larger. Her father was smiling in it, the same warm smile she always remembered. Tears filled her eyes. "You always told me not to worry about little things," she whispered softly. "But this one hurts, Dad." She tried to cancel her credit cards, called her bank, and even filed a small lost and found report online. It all felt routine and robotic, but her mind was still on that photo. That little piece of paper carried so many memories. Her father teaching her how to ride a bike, helping her with school homework, laughing during family dinners. It was as if a part of her past had disappeared that morning. That night she couldn't sleep. The city noises outside faded into a low hum as she lay awake, thinking about how strange life could be. How one small mistake, one careless moment, could turn a normal day upside down. She replayed every second at the cafe in her mind, trying to imagine if someone had picked it up. Was it someone honest? Or someone who had already thrown it away after taking the cash? The thought made her stomach twist. She promised herself she would be more careful from now on, though deep down she knew that wasn't what hurt most. What hurt was the thought that she might never see that little picture again. It was almost midnight when her phone buzzed. She jumped. Her heart raced as she picked it up. The screen showed a message from an unknown number. "Hi," the message read. "Sorry if this is random, but I think I found your wallet today." Lena sat up, staring at the message, almost not believing her eyes. Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Yes, I lost it. Where did you find it?" The reply came within seconds. "Near a cafe on Oak Street. It had your ID inside, so I wanted to make sure it reached the right person." Lena covered her mouth in disbelief. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief. She quickly asked, "Is everything still inside?" The stranger replied, "Yes, I think so. Card's ID and a small photo of a man holding a little girl." It looked important. Her breath caught in her throat. That was it, the photo of her father. She couldn't believe it. After everything that had gone wrong that day, after all the stress and fear, someone had actually found it and cared enough to reach out. She thanked the person over and over again. He introduced himself simply as David. He said he didn't want anything in return, just wanted to make sure the wallet went back to its owner safely. They agreed to meet the next morning at a small park near the cafe. He said it was safer that way, to return it in person and confirm she was the real owner. As she put down the phone, Lena felt something warm in her chest, a strange calmness that she hadn't felt all day. The kind of peace that comes when the universe sends you a small sign that everything will be okay. She sat by her window, watching the quiet city lights below, and whispered softly, "Thank you." She didn't know who she was thanking exactly. Maybe the stranger, maybe her father, maybe both. For the first time that night she smiled. Losing her wallet had been a disaster, yes, but something about the message felt different. The words from that stranger had a certain kindness, a gentleness she couldn't explain. She went to bed still holding her phone, reading the message again and again. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice told her that this was not just luck, that maybe, just maybe, something bigger was at work. She didn't know it yet, but that lost wallet was about to lead her to one of the most meaningful encounters of her life, the kind of meeting that changes how you see the world and makes you believe, even for a moment, that there really are guardian angels among us. Lena woke up earlier than usual the next morning. For once, she didn't hit the snooze button or rush around in panic. Her mind was clear, but her heart was racing with nervous excitement. She couldn't stop thinking about the message from the stranger, David. She had gone over their short conversation several times before sleeping. His tone had felt calm, honest, and reassuring. He hadn't asked for money or anything strange, just wanted to return what belonged to her. Still, she had heard stories of scams and fake messages. That thought made her anxious again. Standing in front of her mirror, she brushed her hair and whispered to herself, "It's just a wallet. You'll get it back, say thank you, and come home." But deep down, it didn't feel like just a wallet anymore. It felt like something more. Like fate had decided to give her day a twist she couldn't have predicted. She left her apartment a little early, just in case. The city streets were still quiet, only a few shopkeepers setting up for the day. The park where they planned to meet wasn't far from the cafe. The sun was soft, spreading a golden glow over the benches and trees. Lena chose a spot near a fountain, her eyes darting to every person who passed by. A man walking his dog, an elderly couple feeding pigeons, a young boy running with a kite. Every time someone looked her way, her heart skipped a beat. Then she saw him. A man in his late 40s, maybe early 50s, walking slowly down the path. He wore a simple gray jacket, jeans, and carried something small in his hand, a brown wallet. He had kind eyes, the sort that made people feel safe without even trying. When he reached her, he smiled softly. "Lena?" She nodded almost too quickly. "Yes, that's me." He held out the wallet. "I believe this belongs to you." Her hands trembled slightly as she took it. "Oh my. Thank you so much." She opened it right there, her heart leaping when she saw the photo of her father still inside. Everything was exactly how she had left it. "I can't believe you found it," she said, her voice breaking a little. "I was sure I'd never see this again." David smiled, his eyes warm. "I was just walking by the cafe yesterday morning. I almost stepped on it. When I opened it and saw the photo, I knew it must mean something. So I figured I'd try to return it." Lena looked at him, feeling a wave of gratitude so strong she couldn't find the right words. "You have no idea what this means to me," she said finally. "That picture, it's the only one I always carry. It's of my dad," he nodded slowly. I could tell. It looked like it mattered. They both sat on a nearby bench. The morning air was crisp, the sounds of birds mixing with the soft splash of the fountain. Lena felt surprisingly comfortable sitting there with him, even though they were strangers. She told him how her father had passed away years ago, how that small photograph reminded her of strength whenever life got tough. David listened quietly, not interrupting, just nodding now and then. When she finished, he said something that caught her off guard. "You know, it's strange. When I saw that picture, I felt like I'd seen that man before." Lena blinked. "You mean you recognized my father?" He hesitated, looking down at the ground for a moment before meeting her eyes again. "Maybe I'm imagining things, but something about him seemed familiar, like a face from long ago." Lena tilted her head, curious but unsure how to respond. "Really? How could that be? My dad passed away years ago and he never lived in this city." David smiled faintly. "I used to work as a paramedic. For over 20 years. I've seen a lot of faces in my time. Sometimes they stay with you even when you don't remember where from." There was a long pause after that. The sound of water filled the silence. Lena studied him. There was something calm about his voice, something steady, like he carried the weight of many stories he never told, wanting to shift the mood. She said with a smile, "You know, most people would have just kept the cash or thrown the wallet away. But you went through all this trouble to find me. Why?" David looked at her, his eyes kind but serious. "Because I believe when you can do something good, you should. It's not about big things, it's about small moments where you can choose to help. Those moments define who we are." Lena smiled softly. "That's rare these days," he shrugged. "Maybe. But it's how I try to live." She couldn't help but feel that there was something deeper in his words, as if they came from experience, perhaps from loss, or maybe from someone who had seen both the best and worst sides of life. They sat together for a while, talking about simple things, work, daily routines, little stories about kindness and chance. Time passed quietly. It felt easy, natural, as if they had known each other for longer than a few minutes. Eventually, Lena checked her watch and realized she needed to leave for work. "I should get going," she said, standing up reluctantly. "But I really mean it, thank you. You've done something very special for me." David smiled. "You don't need to thank me. Just promise me you'll hold on to that photo a little tighter next time." She laughed gently. "I definitely will." Before she left, she hesitated. "Can I at least buy you coffee sometime? As a proper thank you?" He chuckled. "Maybe another day. I'm not far around here. You'll probably see me again." They exchanged a polite goodbye and she walked toward the park gate, glancing back once. He was still sitting on the bench watching the fountain, a quiet figure in the morning light. The rest of her day felt different. Lighter somehow. People around her still rushed, still honked their horns, still complained about small things. But Lena noticed little details she hadn't before. The way sunlight reflected off windows, the sound of laughter from two kids sharing ice cream, even the friendly nod from the security guard at her office door. Maybe it was the relief of getting her wallet back. Or maybe it was something more, the feeling that life had a way of connecting people in strange, beautiful ways. That evening, after work, Lena walked home instead of taking the bus. She passed the cafe, glanced through the window and smiled when she saw the same barista wave at her. For the first time she stopped, bought another cup and just stood there sipping it slowly instead of rushing off. She thought about David, the way he spoke, his calm manner, his words about kindness. He seemed like someone who carried a story too heavy to tell. Something about his eyes had lingered in her mind all day. When she reached home, she placed the wallet on her desk, opened it again, and stared at the photo of her father. She traced her fingers over the edges of the picture, whispering softly, "You always said there are good people out there. Maybe you were right." Just as she set it down, her phone buzzed again. It was a message. "Glad you got home safe," it read. "It was nice meeting you today. Take care of yourself." She smiled, her heart warming instantly. "Thank you again," she replied. "You really made my day better." He responded, "Sometimes life gives us chances to help someone at the right moment. Maybe yesterday was one of those moments." Lena didn't reply right away. She sat there thinking about those words. She couldn't explain why, but something about them felt deeper than simple kindness. It was as if there was a connection, something unspoken, something beyond coincidence. That night as she lay in bed, the memory of the morning replayed in her mind. The park, the soft sound of the fountain, his calm smile. It all felt almost too perfect, like it had been arranged by something greater than chance. She thought of her father again. He used to tell her stories about guardian souls, people who show up in our lives at just the right time, when we need a reminder that goodness still exists. Before closing her eyes, she whispered softly into the quiet room, "Maybe that's what you sent me today, Dad. Maybe you sent me someone to remind me that I'm not alone." And as the night grew quiet around her, Lena felt a strange sense of peace, as if somewhere out there, someone was still watching over her. Someone who had found her wallet not by accident, but for a reason she was only beginning to understand. The morning sun was soft when Lena walked toward the cafe 2 days later. She hadn't planned on coming there again so soon, but something inside her wanted to. Maybe it was the memory of that peaceful meeting in the park, or the strange feeling she couldn't explain since that day. The barista greeted her with the usual smile. "Good morning. The usual coffee?" She nodded, smiling back. "Yes, please." While waiting for her drink, she glanced toward the park across the street. Her eyes searched almost unconsciously, as if hoping to spot the same man sitting quietly on a bench again. She wasn't sure why, but she wanted to talk to him again. Maybe to thank him properly, or maybe just because she felt comfortable around him. When she got her coffee, she took it outside and decided to sit by the small fountain at the park, the same place they had met. The air carried the smell of morning dew and freshly baked bread from the nearby bakery. People passed by, children laughed, pigeons fluttered near her feet. It was peaceful. She stayed there for almost half an hour, sipping her coffee slowly, watching the world move around her. Then just when she was about to stand up and leave, she heard a calm voice behind her. "I thought I might see you here again." She turned around, surprised but smiling. It was David. He wore the same gray jacket, carrying a small paper bag this time. "You read minds now?" she said with a playful tone. He chuckled softly. "No, just a lucky guess. I come here every morning for a walk. It's my quiet place." She gestured to the bench beside her. "Then I guess I'm sitting in your spot." He smiled. "It's a public park. No one owns peace and quiet." They both laughed lightly. There was something so easy about talking to him, like the kind of comfort you feel around someone who doesn't expect anything from you. He handed her the paper bag. "I brought some fresh croissants from the bakery." "I wasn't sure if you'd had breakfast." She blinked, touched by the small gesture. "That's so kind of you." "You didn't have to." "I didn't," he said, "but I wanted to." They shared the food and talked again about ordinary things at first. The weather, work, small city stories. Then somehow the conversation drifted toward life itself. David told her about his old job as a paramedic. He said he had spent years in ambulances, rushing through traffic, trying to save lives. He didn't talk much about himself, but his words carried weight, like someone who had seen too much yet still believed in goodness. Lena listened quietly. She found herself curious about him, about what he had lived through, what made him so calm and kind. At one point, he said something that made her pause. "When you spend years helping people in their worst moments, you start to see how fragile life is. But you also see how strong kindness can be. It's the only thing that makes the world bearable sometimes." Lena looked at him, wondering how many stories were hidden behind those gentle words. "That's beautiful," she said softly. "You make it sound like kindness is medicine." He smiled faintly. "Maybe it is. For the heart, at least." They sat there for a while, both quiet. The sound of the fountain filled the space between them. Lena felt a strange pull, as if she wanted to ask him more, about the familiarity he had mentioned the first time they met, about why he thought he recognized her father. But something stopped her. Maybe it was fear. Maybe she didn't want to break the calmness of the moment. Still, curiosity lingered in her mind. She decided to ask gently, "You said last time that my father's face looked familiar. Have you remembered anything more about that?" David looked down at the ground for a moment. His expression softened, but his voice grew quieter. "I'm not sure," he said. "Sometimes memories come and go like shadows. But there's something about that photo. It stays in my mind, like a moment I've seen before, but I can't quite place it." Lena nodded slowly, not pushing further. She didn't want to make him uncomfortable. After a moment, he looked up at her again. "You miss him a lot, don't you?" She took a deep breath. "Every day he was more than just a parent. He was like my best friend. Whenever I was scared or confused, he was the one person who always knew what to say. Losing him felt like losing my compass," David nodded softly. "When someone you love becomes a memory, that memory becomes your anchor. It's what keeps you steady." His words hit her deeply. For a second, she couldn't speak. It felt like he understood something she had never managed to explain, even to herself. "You sound like you've lost someone too," she said gently. He gave a small smile, one that carried both warmth and sadness. "I have more than one. In my line of work, you learn not to get too attached. But sometimes certain faces, they stay." Lena didn't press. She could feel that whatever he was hinting at was too personal, something that maybe he wasn't ready to share yet. They continued talking until the sun climbed higher in the sky. Time seemed to move differently with him, slow but full. When she finally realized she was late for work again, she laughed. "You have some kind of magic, you know. I keep losing track of time when I talk to you." He smiled. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." She stood up, dusting off her skirt. "Thank you for the croissants. And the company. You really have a way of making an ordinary morning feel special." He nodded. "And you have a way of reminding people that life still surprises us. That's a rare gift." They said goodbye again, and as Lena walked away, she turned once more to wave. He was still sitting on the bench, the sunlight touching his face. There was something peaceful, almost otherworldly, about the sight. That afternoon at work, Lena couldn't focus. Her mind kept drifting back to their conversation. The way he spoke, the calm in his voice, the strange sense of connection that kept growing between them. It wasn't romantic, not exactly. It was something deeper, something that felt like understanding. When she got home that evening, she found herself looking at her father's photo again. "You'd like him, Dad," she whispered softly. "He's kind, and wise, and somehow he feels familiar too." The next few days went by quickly. Work kept her busy, but in quiet moments she found herself hoping to bump into David again. And one evening, just as she was leaving her office, her phone buzzed. A message. "Evening, Lena. I hope your week's been better than the last one." She smiled instantly. "It has been. Thanks to a certain person who found my wallet and gave me faith in people again." He replied, "Then my job's done." She typed, "You really believe in that? Helping people whenever you can?" "Yes," he wrote back. "I believe every person we meet is for a reason. Sometimes to remind us, sometimes to guide us." Her fingers paused over the screen. The words felt like they carried something deeper, something she didn't yet understand. "Do you ever feel like certain people are meant to cross paths?" she asked. After a pause, his reply came, "More often than you'd think." She read that message several times before finally putting her phone down. Her heart felt light again, but her mind was filled with questions. Who was this man, really? Why did it feel like she had known him before? That night, as she lay in bed, her thoughts drifted once more to her father. She remembered the way he used to smile when he said, "No one truly leaves us. The people we love find ways to stay close, in memories, in dreams, or even in strangers who cross our paths." Lena closed her eyes with a quiet smile. Maybe her father had been right. Maybe life really did send us the right people at the right time, and she didn't know it yet, but the next time she would meet David, she would discover something that would change how she saw everything. Her past, her father's final moments, and the mysterious bond between them all. A week had passed since Lena last saw David. The days went by quietly, but she couldn't stop thinking about their conversations, the warmth in his eyes, the calmness in his voice, and that strange feeling of familiarity that never left her. Every morning she looked at her father's photo before leaving for work. She would trace the faded edges and whisper, "I think I met someone you would have liked, Dad." Somehow, saying that made her heart feel lighter. It was Saturday when her phone buzzed with a message she didn't expect. "Good morning, Lena. I'm heading to the park for my usual walk. Thought you might like some company if you're free." She smiled instantly. Her fingers moved quickly over the screen. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The park looked just as peaceful as before when she arrived. The sunlight spilled through the trees and the sound of children playing filled the air. She spotted David near the fountain, the same place where they had shared croissants days ago. He waved as she approached. "Right on time," he said with a friendly grin. "I couldn't say no to a walk in this weather," she replied, smiling. "And maybe I just wanted another free breakfast." He laughed softly, holding up a paper bag. "Then you're in luck. I came prepared." They started walking along the path, talking about small things, her work, his garden, the new cafe that had opened nearby. The conversation flowed easily, like it always did. But deep down, Lena felt that something different hung in the air that morning. She didn't know why, but she sensed that there was more David wanted to say. After a while, they stopped near a quiet corner of the park, where the trees formed a soft shade. The sound of the city faded there, leaving only the breeze and the rustle of leaves. David looked at her, his face thoughtful. "You know, Lena," he said gently, "I've been thinking about that picture of your father ever since I saw it." Her heart skipped a beat. "You mean, you remembered something?" He nodded slowly. "I think so. I wasn't sure if I should say anything before, but now I think you deserve to know." Lena's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. She could feel her pulse racing. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath. "It was many years ago. I was still working as a paramedic back then. It was late one evening when we got a call about an accident on the highway. When we reached there, there was a man, badly hurt but still conscious." Lena's throat went dry. She didn't say a word. David's voice softened as he went on. He had a wallet in his hand. Inside it was a picture of a little girl, smiling, sitting on someone's shoulders. I remember because even in that moment, he kept looking at that photo. He kept whispering the same name, Lena. The world around her seemed to blur for a moment. She stared at him, unable to breathe properly. You were there?" she whispered. He nodded slowly, his eyes filled with quiet sadness. "Yes, I stayed with him until the ambulance reached the hospital." I remember holding his hand. He told me he wasn't afraid, but he was worried about his daughter. He said he wished someone would look after her. Tears filled Lena's eyes before she could stop them. Her hands trembled as she tried to wipe them away. That was my father. He died in an accident. The police told us he passed before reaching the hospital." David's eyes softened. "He did, but he wasn't alone. I promise you that." I held his hand till the very end. "He wasn't in pain for long. He just kept whispering your name, and then," he smiled. "It was peaceful." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the breeze filled the silence between them. Lena covered her mouth as the tears rolled down. She had imagined her father's final moments countless times, always wondering if he had been scared or alone. But now, for the first time, she knew the truth. Someone had been there. Someone kind. Someone who had comforted him when she couldn't. "Thank you," she said through her tears. "You have no idea what that means to me." David looked at her gently. "You don't have to thank me. I think maybe it wasn't a coincidence that I found your wallet. Maybe your father wanted me to tell you that he was at peace." Lena looked at him, her vision still blurred from crying. "You think he sent you?" He smiled faintly. "I don't pretend to know how the world works. But sometimes people cross paths for reasons we can't see. Maybe this was one of those times." She nodded slowly, letting his words sink in. The park around them felt different now, quieter, almost sacred, as if the air itself carried a message from somewhere unseen. They sat on a nearby bench for a long time after that. She told him stories about her father, how he used to hum old songs while cooking breakfast, how he'd fix everything around the house, how he'd always tell her, "The world is full of good people, you just have to look for them." David listened with a soft smile, his eyes kind and full of understanding. "He sounds like he was a good man," he said. "He was," Lena whispered. "And you're proof that he was right." When she finally stopped crying, David handed her a small handkerchief. "Keep this," he said. It's an old habit from my job. Always have something ready for tears. She laughed softly, even as her eyes were still red. You always seem to show up right when I need someone. He looked at her with a calm smile. Maybe that's what I'm meant to do. They both sat quietly again, letting the moment breathe. Lena felt a strange peace inside her, a sense of closure she had never expected to find. She had spent years carrying the weight of her father's death, the pain of not knowing, but now it was as if that burden had gently lifted. As the sun began to lower in the sky, she said softly, I think you were meant to find that wallet, David. I think my dad sent you to me. He didn't deny it. He simply nodded, looking out at the trees. Maybe he did, he said quietly. Sometimes life brings two people together so that one can heal the other. When they finally stood up to leave, Lena felt lighter, not just emotionally, but in her soul. It was as if some invisible thread had finally connected her to her father again, through the kindness of a stranger who wasn't really a stranger anymore. As they walked toward the park gate, the wind blew softly through the trees. Lena looked up and smiled. You know, she said, I used to think the world was full of coincidences, but now I think maybe it's full of tiny miracles. David looked at her and nodded. That's a beautiful way to see it. Before they parted, she asked, Will I see you again? He smiled gently. I think you will. I'm always around here somewhere. Lena watched him walk away, his figure slowly blending into the soft evening light. She stood there for a long moment, feeling an overwhelming mix of emotions, sadness, peace, and gratitude all at once. When she finally went home, she took out the photograph from her wallet and placed it beside her bed. That night she didn't cry. For the first time in years, she felt calm when she looked at her father's face. She whispered softly, Thank you for not leaving me alone that day. Thank you for sending him. Outside her window, the wind rustled gently through the trees. It almost felt like someone whispering back. That night, as she drifted to sleep, Lena felt surrounded by something she couldn't explain. A quiet sense of comfort, as if both her father and David were somehow watching over her. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew one thing for sure. Her father hadn't really left her. He had simply found another way to be there when she needed him most. And the man who had found her wallet was not just a stranger anymore. He was the bridge between her pain and her healing, the living reminder that sometimes the people we meet are not just coincidences. They are answers to prayers we didn't even know we were still whispering. The next few weeks passed quietly, but something inside Lena had changed. She found herself smiling more often, even when nothing special was happening. The world didn't seem as heavy anymore. The mornings felt softer, the evenings more peaceful. Every time she walked by the park, she would glance around, half expecting to see David sitting on his favorite bench near the fountain, feeding the birds. Sometimes he was there. Sometimes he wasn't, but even when she didn't see him, she felt his presence somehow, calm, steady, and reassuring, like the voice of someone who understood life in ways others didn't. One chilly morning, Lena decided to take a walk before heading to work. The air smelled of rain and the sky was painted in pale gray shades. When she reached the park, she saw David sitting in his usual spot, wearing the same brown coat and scarf. He was looking up at the trees, lost in thought. Good morning, she said, smiling as she approached. He turned, his face lighting up. Good morning, Lena, you're early today. I couldn't sleep much, she admitted. So I thought a walk might help. He nodded. The park's the best place for that. Nature listens when people need to think. They sat together quietly for a while. The sound of leaves brushing against the wind filled the silence. After a few minutes, David spoke softly. You know, Lena, I think your father would be very proud of you. She smiled, though her eyes glistened. You think so? I know so, he said. He raised a kind, strong daughter, and you carry him in everything you do. His words warmed her heart in a way nothing else could. She looked at him, wondering how someone who had once been a stranger now felt like family. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small wrapped box. I wanted to give you this, she said. He looked surprised. For me? Yeah, she smiled. Just something small. You've done a lot for me, and I wanted to say thank you. He opened the box slowly. Inside was a simple silver keychain with a little engraved quote, Some people make the world better just by being in it. David smiled gently, running his fingers over the words. This is beautiful, he said quietly. Thank you. "You've been like a guardian angel to me," she said softly. "I don't know if you believe in those things, but that's what you are to me." He looked at her with kind eyes, the kind that seemed to carry both wisdom and sadness. "Maybe we all get to be someone's angel once in a while," he said. "And when our part is done, we move on to help someone else." Something in his tone made her pause. There was a quiet finality in it, as if he was saying goodbye without really saying the words. "David," she said gently, "is everything okay?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Everything's fine, Lena. Just been thinking a lot lately. I'm getting older, you know. There are things I still need to do." She nodded slowly, unsure what to say. They talked for a while longer, about simple things, about kindness, about how small acts could change someone's day. When she finally stood to leave for work, he said, "Take care of yourself, all right? Keep smiling. You've got a beautiful heart. Don't let the world make it heavy again." She promised she wouldn't. That was the last day she saw him. At first, she thought maybe he was just busy. A week went by, then two. Each morning, she stopped by the park looking for him, hoping he'd appear with that gentle smile and a cup of coffee in hand. But the bench remained empty. One day, she decided to ask the park caretaker about him. "Do you happen to know the older man who sits near the fountain?" she asked. "Brown coat, kind eyes?" The caretaker frowned, thinking, "Oh, you mean the man who used to feed the birds?" "Yes, I know him. Quiet fellow. Haven't seen him in a while." Her heart sank a little. "Do you know where he lives?" He shook his head. "Not really. But I remember a while ago he told me he was planning to move. Said he had some things to take care of. Maybe going back to where his family was from. Never said exactly when." Lena thanked him and walked away slowly. For the rest of the day, her thoughts kept drifting back to David. She couldn't explain it, but she felt something tugging at her heart. A quiet ache mixed with gratitude. That evening, she decided to stop by the small church near the park. She hadn't gone there in years, but something drew her to it. Inside, the candles flickered softly, casting warm light on the wooden pews. She sat down, closed her eyes, and whispered, "I hope he's all right. Wherever he is." When she opened her eyes, she noticed something on one of the side tables near the candles, a folded piece of paper resting under a small stone. She walked closer, curious. The paper had her name written on it. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. Inside, in neat handwriting, it said, "Dear Lena, if you're reading this, it means I've gone where I was meant to go. Don't be sad. Life brings people together for reasons we may never fully understand. You gave me peace just as much as I gave you comfort. You reminded me that even after loss, there's still kindness, hope, and beauty in this world. Your father was proud of you, and so am I. Keep helping others. Keep believing that goodness finds its way back to us. Whenever you see someone who needs a bit of light, be that light. That's how you'll keep your father close. Thank you for letting me be part of your story. With love, David." Her eyes filled with tears. She held the letter close to her chest, feeling the same warmth she had felt that day in the park when he told her about her father. She whispered softly, "Goodbye, my friend." From that day on, Lena carried the letter with her everywhere. It became her reminder that even when people leave, the kindness they share stays behind like footprints in the heart. Months passed, and the seasons changed. Spring turned to summer, and the park bloomed with new life again. Lena started volunteering at a local shelter in her free time. She would sit with lonely elders, share coffee with them, and listen to their stories. Sometimes she even helped return lost items. A misplaced ring, a forgotten bag, always smiling when she did. People often asked her why she cared so much about strangers. She would just smile and say, "Because once a stranger cared about me when I needed it most." On the anniversary of her father's passing, she went to the park early in the morning. The sky was still painted in soft pink light, and the world was quiet. She walked to the same bench where she and David had sat so many times before. There, resting on the seat, was a single white feather. She smiled, tears filling her eyes again, but this time they were happy tears. She picked up the feather, held it to her heart, and whispered, "Thank you for everything." As she walked away, a gentle breeze brushed against her face, and for a moment, she felt that same calm presence again, like someone watching over her, guiding her steps. From that day forward, Lena lived her life with a quiet purpose. She didn't wait for miracles anymore. She tried to be one for others, whether it was helping a stranger on the street, comforting a friend, or simply smiling at someone having a bad day. She believed that every small act of kindness carried a piece of her father's spirit, and maybe even a touch of David's. She often thought about that day when she had dropped her wallet. It had felt like such a small mistake, a simple accident, but now she understood it had been something far bigger, the beginning of a meeting that changed her forever. Sometimes, when she passed the fountain at sunset, she could almost see his reflection in the water, sitting quietly, smiling as if to say, "I'm still here." And she would whisper back, "I know," because deep down she understood that guardian angels don't always wear wings. Sometimes they wear brown coats and kind smiles. Sometimes they find you when you lose something and give you back much more than you ever expected. Time moved quietly after that, like gentle waves brushing the shore. It had been almost a year since the day Lena found David's letter in the church, yet his words still echoed in her mind every time she faced a choice or moment of doubt. She often walked through the park where it had all begun. The fountain still sang its soft tune, the same trees still whispered in the wind, but now she noticed things she hadn't before. The smiles of strangers, the laughter of children, even the way sunlight touched the leaves. Everything seemed alive in a way she had never truly seen before. That one encounter had changed how she looked at the world. She had kept her promise to stay kind, to carry light, to help others just as David and her father had helped her. She started spending her weekends volunteering at a small charity group that organized food drives and community events. It wasn't glamorous work, but it gave her peace. She found comfort in small things, handing a sandwich to someone who needed it, sharing a laugh with a tired mother, or simply listening when someone wanted to talk. One rainy afternoon, the group organized a shelter day, where they served meals to the homeless. As Lena handed out plates, a little boy tugged on her sleeve. He couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, with messy hair and bright eyes that reminded her of something familiar. "Miss, did you lose something?" he asked curiously. She smiled, crouching to his level. "No, not today. Why?" He held out a small item, a coin, shiny and old, with an angel engraved on one side. "I found this outside," he said. It looked special. Lena's breath caught for a moment. The engraving was almost identical to the symbol she'd once seen on the corner of David's letter. She gently took it and smiled. "It is special," she said softly. "Thank you for finding it." The boy grinned. "You can keep it. My grandma says angels leave signs when they're watching us." She smiled again, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "Your grandma is a very wise lady." Later that night, when she returned home, she placed the coin beside David's letter and her father's photograph. The 3 objects together, the photo, the letter, the coin, felt like pieces of the same message, small reminders that love never truly disappears. Weeks passed, and Lena's life found a beautiful rhythm. She had started painting again, something she had stopped after her father's death. Her small apartment began to fill with colors, gentle landscapes, skies, faces of strangers she met at the shelter. One of her paintings, a soft watercolor of the park fountain, caught the attention of a visitor at a local art fair. The man, who ran a community gallery, asked if she would like to display her work there. It was something she had never imagined, her art hanging for others to see. When the exhibition opened, she invited a few friends from the shelter and her neighbors. As she stood near her paintings, she looked at the crowd quietly, wondering what her father would have said if he were there. Maybe he would have smiled proudly. Maybe David would have stood beside him, nodding, saying, "Told you he'd be proud." In the center of the display, there was one painting that drew the most attention. It was a simple piece, a brown coat hanging over a park bench with sunlight spilling over it. The title read, "The Guardian." An elderly woman stopped in front of it for a long time. Later, she approached Lena and said softly, "My dear, that painting. It feels alive. Who is it for?" Lena smiled gently. "For someone who reminded me that angels don't always come from heaven." The woman's eyes softened. "Then you were truly blessed." That night, after the exhibition ended, Lena stayed behind for a while, cleaning up the hall. The lights were dim and the place was silent. As she was about to leave, she noticed something near the entrance, a white feather lying on the floor. She bent down slowly, picked it up and smiled. "You came to see it, didn't you?" she whispered. It felt like another quiet sign, not loud or dramatic, but soft and certain. She slipped the feather into her pocket and walked out into the cool night air. Life carried on. Seasons changed again. One morning, Lena received a letter in the mail. No return address, just her name neatly written. When she opened it, she found a short note inside. Dear Lena, your kindness reached farther than you think. I met someone at the shelter last week. A little boy who said a lady with kind eyes told him to believe in angels. He said you helped him and his mother find a place to stay. You may not know it, but you've become someone's guardian now. Keep shining that light. There was no signature. But at the bottom corner was a small hand-drawn feather, just like the one she had found before. She pressed the letter to her heart. Maybe it wasn't from David. Maybe it was from someone she had helped, or maybe it was just another small miracle the world had sent her way. Either way, she smiled. That night, she took out her journal and wrote, When we lose something, sometimes it's not meant to be found. Sometimes it's meant to lead us to something better. My lost wallet gave me more than I ever thought I'd find. It gave me faith again. As months turned into another year, Lena's story began to spread quietly through the people she met. The little boy at the shelter, the gallery owner, the old lady from the art show. Everyone carried a piece of her kindness forward, just as David had once carried her father's last words. It was as if life had formed a circle, one good act leading to another, one heart passing warmth to the next. One evening, as she sat by her window watching the sunset, Lena whispered softly, You were right, Dad. The world is full of good people. Sometimes you just have to look for them. A soft wind moved through the curtains, brushing against her face, and in that moment she didn't feel alone at all. The light from the sunset filled her small room, painting everything golden, the photograph, the letter, the coin, and the feather. All of them seemed to glow together, like tiny reminders of a promise that never faded. Lena smiled. Her story had begun with something as small as a lost wallet, but it had led her to everything she had been missing. Love, faith, and connection. She knew now that guardian angels didn't always appear to save you in grand ways. Sometimes they just helped you find yourself again. And maybe, she thought as she closed her eyes and listened to the wind, she had finally become one too.